On September 2nd, 1609, Henry Hudson, an English explorer working for the Dutch East India Company, navigated the ship Havre Man through the Narrows into upper New York Bay. Like Italian explorer Christopher Columbus, Hudson sought a westerly passage to Asia, and though he didn't find it, he did observe a significant beaver population. Alongside its use for clothing, the trade in beaver pelts resulted in the discovery of castoreum, a secretion from the anal glands of beavers, valued for its medicinal and perfumery purposes. Hudson's observation of the abundant beaver population spurred the establishment of Dutch trading colonies in the New World. The beaver's significance in New York's history is evident in its representation on the city's official seal. The Dutch established their first fur trading post and settlement around 1614 near present-day Albany, New York. In that same year, the name New Netherland appeared on maps. It wasn't until May 1624 that the Dutch West India Company aboard the ship New Netherland brought 30 families to Norton Island, known today as Governor's Island, located off the southern tip of Manhattan at the mouth of the Hudson River. Concerns about potential attacks from other European colonial powers led the directors of the Dutch West India Company to devise a strategy to safeguard the entrance to the strategic Hudson River. Thus, in 1624, 30 families sponsored by the Dutch West India Company relocated from Norton Island to Manhattan Island. Shortly after, likely in 1626, construction commenced on Fort Amsterdam. Positioned at the strategic southern tip of Manhattan Island where the Hudson and East Rivers converge, the fort was intended to safeguard the fur trade ventures of the Dutch West India Company. It served as a focal point of the settlement on the island and the surrounding region, which was christened New Amsterdam by the initial Dutch colonists. Yet, given the prevalence of rivers, islands and marshlands reminiscent of their homeland, did the Dutch ever have a plan to build canals in New Amsterdam? In fact, in the history of New Amsterdam, the Dutch settlers constructed a singular canal, which is prominently depicted on the 1660 Castello Plan map of New Amsterdam, officially titled
Afbeeldingen van de stad Amsterdam in Nieuw-Nederland.
This early city map of what is now the financial district of Lower Manhattan was made by Jacques Cortelyou, the Surveyor General during the era of New Amsterdam. The canal ran the course of what is now Broad Street, a thoroughfare in the financial district of Lower Manhattan that extends from today's South Street to Wall Street. As its name and historical maps indicate, Broad Street was marginally broader than adjacent streets due to its former role as a canal route. Likewise, Bridge Street, another street in the financial district of Lower Manhattan spanning 2 blocks from State Street in the west to Broad Street in the east, acquired its name from a bridge that once crossed the canal. Alongside this, the settlers in New Amsterdam did construct a settlement in a manner reminiscent of their homeland, consciously echoing elements of the older Amsterdam. The presence of windmills, brick houses and bridges spanning the canal all served as reminders of the city's namesake. The canal was apparently known locally as the Ditch because, although there were strict rules against tossing in rubbish, in reality it was a relatively small and unsanitary stream of stagnant water. Its construction began in 1659, just before the above map was drawn. It was originally an inlet from the East River and was created on the orders of the Director General of the Dutch West India Company and New Amsterdam's director, Peter Stuyvesant. Stuyvesant was responsible for implementing several changes to how the town operated, including improvements to its infrastructure. One of Stuyvesant's initiatives was construction of a wall along what is now Wall Street, stretching from Broadway in the west to South Street in the East River in the east. This wall was erected at the onset of the First Anglo-Dutch War, shortly after the incorporation of New Amsterdam in 1653. Concerned about a potential overland invasion by English troops from the colonies in New England, Stuyvesant mandated the construction of a ditch and wooden palisade along the northern boundary of the New Amsterdam settlement. The wall, made of dirt and 15-foot wooden planks, spanned 2,340 feet in length and stood 9 feet tall. Its construction relied on the labour of both black slaves and white colonists. Despite being relatively unimpressive, the ditch was named
Herengracht
or Gentleman's Canal, after the likewise named
Herengracht
in Old Amsterdam. It marked a significant early enhancement to the small town, yet its existence was short-lived. Persistent hostilities and commercial competition between the Dutch and the English leading to the First Anglo-Dutch War and remaining unresolved by the Treaty of Westminster in 1654 contributed to its eventual demise. On August 27, 1664, 4 English frigates commanded by Richard Nichols entered New Amsterdam's harbour and demanded its surrender. This resulted in the bloodless capture of New Amsterdam, and on September 29, 1664, the Articles of Surrender of New Netherland were signed, transferring control of the Dutch Republic's colonial province of New Netherland to the Kingdom of England. In the aftermath, the English assumed control of New Amsterdam, renaming it New York in honour of the Duke of York, later King James II of England. King Charles II, the elder brother of James, appointed the Duke as proprietor of the former territory of New Netherland, including the city of New Amsterdam, upon England's acquisition of it from Dutch governance. The English swiftly established New York as the primary hub of trade for the entire region. This endeavour involved enhancing the waterfront, replacing smaller residences with larger commercial buildings, and upgrading the streets adjacent to the docks to handle the growing influx of traffic. Consequently, the canal was filled and paved with stone in 1676, in part due to the refuse left by fruit and vegetable vendors, including Native Americans arriving by canoe from Long Island, and a decreasing number of watercraft small enough to navigate the canal. The street established atop the former canal was named Broad Street in 1692. Hence, the canal endured only a few decades after its construction, and given the Dutch's loss of control over the colony shortly thereafter, it remains unclear whether they intended to construct additional canals, and in my research, I have not read anything about such plans. Also, a bit of a side note and explanation for those New Yorkers who know about the modern day Canal Street. This Canal Street is a street in Lower Manhattan which runs from East Broadway in the east to West Street in the west, but is a ways north of the former Dutch settlement. Thus, it has nothing to do with the Dutch, and instead takes its name from a different canal that was built more than a century later. By 1800, Collect Pond in what is now Chinatown in Lower Manhattan was one of New York City's few natural sources of fresh water. However, it had fallen victim to extensive pollution from sewage and runoff originating from nearby tanneries, breweries, and various workshops and factories. The contaminated runoff, including a sluggish stream that traced part of the path of the future Canal Street, flowed into adjacent swamps and marshland, hindering the city's expansion northward. To address this issue, the city's Common Council ordered the draining of the swamps, and in 1803 the filling of the pond itself. A drainage system was constructed along the path of the sluggish stream, extending to the Hudson River, redirecting the underground springs that fed the swamps. By 1813 or 1815, the pond had been successfully drained. However, despite development efforts, the springs persisted, resulting in the dry land remaining boggy and uneven. In response, the Common Council approved the construction of a canal, a 40-foot wide, 8-foot deep ditch, to continue managing the excess water flow. Yet, due to its inefficiency and non-existent flow, the canal also turned into an open sewer. In 1819, the city decided to cover it up. However, lacking proper ventilation, the covered canal soon became a foul-smelling sewer. Canal Street was subsequently completed in 1820, tracing the route of the covered canal and obviously being named after it. This hasn't made Jack, and if you're on a canal in Amsterdam right now, please leave a comment down below.